Greetings everyone, I am Dr. J, and since I don't have a game ready to review this week, let's talk about the games I've been going through that I'm either not doing a Let's Play for, or would take too long to wait for said Let's Play to be done. To start us off, I thought that Icewind Dale would be the next game I would review, as it's something that I've been slowly chipping away at for a while, and has been a fun change of pace whenever I have. If The Witcher hadn't turned into a time vampire that got its fangs in me and isn't letting go. Honestly, I can understand now why some people said you can safely skip it, as the combat isn't spectacular, but why would you do that when the story and circumstances are so well executed and are constantly keeping me guessing? The only reason I haven't finished this yet is because there's only so much room on my hard drive for raw video footage, and it can take entire nights to compress it into something more reasonable. Okay, back it up, start from what's going on, and then you can gush all over it. So, when I went into this, I was a little worried because the game opted to give me a predefined character, specifically Geralt of Rivia. He is one of the last of the Witchers, who has apparently been either dead or missing in the last few years. I'm still not entirely clear on which it is, and if I did, I'm not saying it here. Either way, they cleverly pulled a Planescape Torment by giving him amnesia, which means you're learning things as Geralt is, and don't have to worry as much about what he was like before you as the player stepped in. And honestly, given the subject matter of the game, they've been using that amnesia to add a fair amount into the story and characters. I mentioned the last time I talked about this game that it seemed like whenever I looked further at a character that there was always a dark side, ulterior motive, secret, or strangeness. Well, I thought that there were some lines that it wouldn't cross, but when I say that everyone has their own problem, I literally mean everyone. And yet, on the flip side of that, everyone has their shred of humanity, to where there are no good or bad guys in the story, arguably not even Geralt depending on how you act. Where this really works is when it refers to the story itself, as while Geralt has his own goals that he wishes to accomplish, there is plenty going on in the periphery, to where seemingly anything you do could have wide-reaching consequences. I don't want to give any specifics because that fact means that anything I can say could end up completely changing how you approach the game. I think to phrase it for the review, I'll mention the two main factions that are in conflict, beyond all of the subterfuge of life in the city you're in. One of them is the Order of the Flaming Rose, who are the closest this game has to a class of paladins, and the other are the Scoia'tael, which are a rebellious group of non-human freedom fighters. Both of these groups have their sympathetic element, both through the people that are involved and the aims and actions of said group. The Order is working in a time when the king is away, and are doing their best to keep things running despite the presence of the group you're dealing with and the Scoia'tael. However, they have their fair share of unsavory characters, some of which are downright racist against non-humans, which given his status as a Witcher, technically includes Geralt. The Scoia'tael are in many ways reacting to the legitimate racism that non-humans are facing, as the character we get to know, and their leader, tried living among humans for a long time despite things never seeming to change. In the end, however, it made him a racist in turn that is more than willing to engage in terrorism since, in his mind, it's gone beyond words. Within this conflict, I think it's technically possible to stay out of it if you avoid any quests regarding it, though I haven't gotten past chapter 3 yet, so something might change there that I don't know about. I went out of my way to not do a quest related to the matter where I felt it wasn't something that could end well, and then failed to do so in chapter 3 because I hoped there was a way to handle it peacefully. Unfortunately for me, that wasn't the case, and I had to pick a side based on what was said already. What kind of weight that decision will have remains to be seen, as it's my understanding that Witchers are technically supposed to stay out of political matters. At this point, it's managed to keep me engaged, but there are a couple of points that still concern me. To start, it seems to be crashing more than I'd like, which might be due to the fact that I'm recording it or because of an issue with the game itself. Because of those crashes, it's made the downtime seem worse because when push comes to shove, you're not really doing much while in transit. They just added teleports that work sort of like fast travel, but when you don't know where to go next, it can take a while to amble into something new. Beyond that, I ran into a major bug that I had to download a save file editor to get past. Apparently because I started working on a quest in the swamp that I didn't know much about but was able to intuitively figure out something matched, some of what I was working on decided to not trigger when it needed to, and that meant I basically had to put it down until I knew more about the issue. Fortunately, there is a save file editor, though I had to reinstall Java and tamper with it a fair amount beyond that for it to work. But at the end of the day, if it works, it works. So thus far the game is riding on the fact that the story and characters have been engaging enough to where the flaws with the technical aspects in combat haven't overshadowed them. I'm hoping this continues, though I suspect I'm nearing some kind of resolution. I have my theory as to what's going to happen next, so the question for me right now is what will be thrown my way to keep me on my toes. Here's hoping that it won't disappoint. Star Wars Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2, the game with probably the longest name I've ever seen with just as many colons to match, but also up to this point a competent shooter. For those of you unfamiliar with the game, it exists within the old Star Wars canon as you take on the role of Kyle Katarn, as with the fall of the Empire and everything hopefully a little calmer because of it, he's looking for clues as to his father's death. Naturally, this leads him to Nar Shaddaa, where things go about as well as a Star Wars nerd can expect, and you end up pitted against a dark Jedi called Jarek, who seems keen on awakening some ancient power that he could use to rule the galaxy with. You know, the usual. But things get interesting when you continue down that path and find out that not only is Kyle Katarn Force sensitive himself, his father seemed to have some knowledge of this and left behind a lightsaber and some instruction in his old home. So the race is on to stop this dark Jedi from causing trouble as you're trying to figure out who you are all the while. The annoying part about this game for me comes down to my first impression, as I technically started playing this game back when I was halfway through Shining Force 2. In between now and then though, I changed out my motherboard and graphics card, and in order to play a different game, I've kept my computer in Windows 7 instead of going straight back to Windows 10. In terms of this game, that ended up being a good thing, as even the GOG version had its fair share of issues in Windows 10. The ones I ran into were a lack of background music and the inability to enable hardware acceleration, which meant I was stuck in 1280 by 1024. Combine that with other issues I had while recording, and it wasn't a fun time. Now that I have it on Windows 7 though, things are seemingly running smoothly, though I can't help but wonder if their process to get the game to 1080p just ended up cropping the top and bottom of the screen. I could have sworn that there were more of the gun models than the little snippet you'd get below, though if I'm not lazy, I'm sure the difference will be shown with what footage I have from my attempt to record it then. When it comes to the story, I don't know if I can judge it properly yet, but I can say that for the gameplay, I really like it thus far. I haven't gotten a substantial number of force powers yet, nor do I expect to this early on, but the level design seems to be in good shape, and the circumstances that I find myself in have been interesting. In a lot of ways, it feels like I'm playing the progenitor to Half-Life. As while the game isn't completely interconnected, there is a substantial story, and the level design is more in line with Half-Life than a traditional FPS. That doesn't mean the level design is bad, but rather that it's designed to be more linear, with plenty of secrets off the beaten path for the inquisitive player. The pacing also feels very similar, as it seems like every time I turn a corner, there's something new that has to be dealt with, meaning I seldom have any downtime to worry about. I'd say that Half-Life took some cues from this game, but given that the two were released months apart from each other, I doubt that's actually the case. Regardless, the short version is that I am genuinely enjoying it thus far. I'm a little concerned as to how well it'll sustain the momentum, but other than that, I don't have much to complain about besides some of the weird FMV sections. Here's hoping that it continues to be interesting. That's all I have for this video. Thank you all for watching. Please like and share this if you find it deserving, and subscribe to this channel for more waffling about games I haven't finished, as well as other content posted on a not-so-regular basis. At this point, I fully expect The Witcher to be the next game I review, though that may change depending on how lengthy Dark Forces 2 ends up being. Either way, I'm gonna get back to both, and we'll see you all later.